Welcome to All in the Words, the podcast for writers and storymakers in all their forms. Each fortnight we explore a different corner of the writing world, from stage to screen, audio to novels, lyrics to scripts. With original pieces, creative conversations and toolkits for your process. Lee here, and in this episode we look at the top streaming platforms that there are for watching stage plays. All to come in this episode of All in the Words. One of the outcomes from the lockdown from the COVID pandemic was a surge in popularity for streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus and what have you. I think it had the effect of fast-tracking the complete evolution of our TV viewing habits and has had a long-lasting effect on people's viewing habits of live TV. However, one of the biggest casualties from the pandemic lockdown was live theatre. In an attempt to keep that alive, we saw the evolution of the streaming platforms for theatre plays. Thankfully, our great British institution, the National Theatre, had a catalogue of productions which they'd filmed as part of their National Theatre Live. The first production of which was Phaedra, starring Helen Mirren, which was broadcast live from the stage of the National Theatre in London to cinemas across the UK and the world in June 2009. And with this back catalogue of productions, they were very quickly able to create their platform National Theatre at Home, which started off life in 2020 as a free online streaming initiative during the first COVID-19 lockdown. It became a paid-for subscription-based streaming service in December of 2020. Others followed suit, and in this podcast, I'm going to be looking at what I consider to be the three big players in streaming of theatre and performing arts. That's National Theatre at Home, Marquee TV and Digital Theatre. I'll take you through the types of content, the cost and payment options, and the platform compatibility and reliability. But bear in mind when I talk about cost that these will be the prices at the time of recording, which is in September 2025. Now, before I delve into each one of them in turn, let's just consider how valuable these are as resources to writers of plays. Ask any experienced theatre practitioner's advice on how to improve your craft as a scriptwriter. One of the most common things they'll say is to read and watch as many plays as possible. But this comes with two challenges. Firstly, if you live in a remote area, it's very difficult to get to a theatre or to see a variety of work. And secondly, there's the cost. Ticket prices can range from pay what you can up to £70 or more in a regional theatre, or into several £100s for the hottest ticket in the West End. So, with these streaming platforms, it is easier to watch a wide variety of plays at comparatively more affordable cost. It's a fantastic resource as a learning tool, but of course you don't get the thrill or the buzz of experiencing a piece of live theatre as it happens before your very eyes. A common functionality across each of these platforms is that you can access them in a variety of ways, whether it be on a smart TV, through a web browser on your computer, on a tablet computer or on a smartphone, with the added benefit that you can download performance pieces on your phone so that you can watch them while you're on the move. But now let's look at each of these platforms individually, and first off we start with National Theatre at Home. With the benefit of having filmed many productions as part of the National Theatre Live programme, they've clearly mastered how best to capture the production to show it off in its best light. With its multiple camera angles and its crisp sound, you get a real sense of performance. And when it comes to content, it has a pretty impressive back catalogue, which ranges from the classics you'd expect by Shakespeare, Chekhov and the likes, including new adaptations, some of which are pretty experimental, but brings things bang up to date with contemporary classics and showcasing new work. And of course, with it being the National Theatre, it does attract the best talent, where you get to see some of our best actors producing some of their best work. Another interesting aspect, which is true across other platforms, is that you can get to see different productions and interpretations of the same play, so you can then compare and contrast. Another big plus is that many of the recordings have been developed with accessibility in mind, and as such can be watched with audio description or with BSL interpretation. In terms of programming the schedule of content, They do rotate the productions that are available, so there will be new content for you to watch, or productions that you enjoyed which were removed are likely to come back again. But one thing we will see when we look at the other platforms is the variety in the types of play that are available. There are musicals, but for the most part their productions are very traditional theatre plays. Now, to give a shout out to some of the productions I have watched which really stood out for me, they include Angels in America Parts 1 and 2, with what I think is a stellar performance by Andrew Garfield. There's also an amazing and what I consider to be very important new play called The Father and the Assassin, featuring outstanding performances from Hiran Abisakira and Paul Baisley, playing Naturam Godse and Mahatma Gandhi respectively, all about the lead up to the assassination of Gandhi. Another notable production is the adaptation of Chekhov's Three Sisters, set in Nigeria in 1967. So, let's have a look at pricing. And the good thing here is that there's lots of flexibility on how you can pay to access National Theatre at Home. You can take out a subscription either for the year, or you can pay monthly with the option to cancel at any time, or you can rent individual productions for a 3-day period. In terms of cost, a monthly subscription at the time of recording this episode is £9.99. An annual subscription will set you back £99.99, which in effect gives you 2 months free. To rent a play, it varies from £5.99 to £7.99. The top end feels a bit pricey. In that case, you might as well take out a month's subscription for a couple of extra pounds and get more time to watch your chosen play, and then have the option to watch other productions across the month. You can pay for National Theatre at Home either directly through the website or via the App Store on your chosen device. Now, time to look at the flip side. And one thing I've noticed is that even though there are plenty of ways you can access National Theatre at Home, the reality is the TV app is not brilliant. I access the app using a Google Chrome stick, albeit an older model, and every time I tried to access the platform, it would never load properly, and I'd end up casting a play that I wanted to watch from my Android phone. However, when I did watch a production on my TV, the quality of the broadcast was exceptional, and all the other ways of accessing the platform worked without any issue whatsoever. So let's turn our attention to Marquee TV. Once again, it's available across multiple platforms, and from the experience of my testing, it was pretty seamless across all the different devices, through the web browser of my Apple laptop, to my Apple tablet, then on my Android phone, and then via the app on my Chromecast stick. Each device picked up seamlessly where I left off. Mobile devices also give you the option to download a production to view while you're on the move. The big difference between National Theatre at Home and Marquee TV, and indeed digital theatre, is that National Theatre at Home, for the most part, is in-house produced content, which is only to be expected, but Marquee TV and digital theatre procure their content from many different producers. Marquee TV's big hitter is the RSC, so its theatre content is predominantly Shakespeare. It does have other content, but perhaps at the time of recording, not as much as you would hope. That said, if you like performance in all its many art forms, Marquee TV does stand out for its broad range of extensive collections of ballet from the likes of the Royal Ballet, opera from amongst others the Royal Opera, some astounding contemporary dance content, and collections of classical music and jazz. They also have an extensive collection of behind-the-scenes documentaries, which, as a writer, are really valuable in understanding how directors and actors approach the words that you have written. As with all these platforms, the content includes big-name actors and directors, and you get the bonus of seeing different productions of the same play, which, again as a writer, is really interesting to inspire and inform your own work. Also, the content that is included is from across the world. It's not just Britain. At the time of recording, the big new release is a Donmar Warehouse production of Macbeth, with David Tennant and Cush Jumbo. The intimacy of the performance space is captured really well on film, and listening through headphones while I watched on my laptop, the soundscape adds another level to the experience which is not quite captured when you watch it on TV. Navigation is straightforward, and there's a handy menu option to search by category, so you can very quickly find content in the art form that you want to watch. As for pricing, there's no option to rent an individual play, but a monthly subscription, which you can cancel at any time, will set you back £8.99 per month. If you opt for an annual subscription, at the time of recording, you can get a discounted rate of £62.99 for the first year, which rises to £89.99 a year thereafter. But I did also find out that they do offer an industry discount. I don't know what the discount is, but if you select the help option on whichever device you're using and enter discount in the search field, an article pops up which you can click on, and that gives you details on how to request it. Lastly, we're going to look at digital theatre. As with National Theatre at Home and Marquee TV, it can be viewed on all the various devices, and it played well on all of them, easily picking up where I left off. However, it doesn't appear to allow you to download content to watch offline, which is a bit of a downside if you're on the move and reliant on mobile data to view the content. There is notably some crossover with Marquee TV, including content from the RSC, the London Symphony Orchestra, and with odd productions appearing on both platforms. Digital theatre tips the edge with its catalogue of theatre productions, with its contemporary and classical theatre offerings, but also includes dance, not ballet, physical theatre, classical music and opera. But its catalogue is predominantly British-produced theatre plays, including productions that they have recorded themselves for the platform. It does allow the flexibility, as with National Theatre at Home, to be able to rent individual productions for £7.99. Or, of course, you can subscribe at £9.99 a month to cancel at any time, or pay £99.99 for the year. Something to consider across all these platforms is whether the cost is worth it. I would wager that to take out an annual subscription, you would not get a big enough benefit for the outlay, especially if you're in a household where not everyone wants to watch recordings of stage plays. As such, the number of plays that you watch in a year might not justify an annual subscription. That said, as a tool for researching a variety of plays to improve your script writing, perhaps a monthly subscription alternating across each of the platforms may be something that gives you the best option, certainly to access as many different productions and art forms as possible. Also, if you're an educator alongside your writing, then each of the platforms have a different offering to support your teaching. National Theatre at Home gives free access to stream productions and also provides free education resources. And both Marquee TV and Digital Theatre offer different levels of discount dependent on each institution's needs. But Digital Theatre is through its sister platform, Digital Theatre Plus, which, like National Theatre at Home, also offer a number of supporting resources. I'll include links to the relevant websites in the podcast info. There's also a number of different ways that you can subscribe to each of these platforms, either through the dedicated app for each of the devices or through the platform website. If you access through an app, then it can cause confusion if you want to make changes to your account or sign in and view content on a different device. Any changes need to be made through the account of the device that you signed up with, such as the App Store on Apple or Play Store on Android. It may make it easier if you subscribe through their websites. So there you have it. As ever, it's never straightforward. It comes down to a personal preference in which one you choose. But all these platforms offer high quality content. They give you an opportunity to see great actors performing in great productions in a relatively cost-effective way. And for each of them, the ways to access the platforms gives you a lot of flexibility on how, when and where you watch the content. All that's left to do now is to dive in. Thanks for joining me on this episode of All in the Words. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate and share, and join the conversation over on the All in the Words Instagram profile. You can find any links and episode extras on the podcast website, allinthewords.podbean.com. Until next time, keep writing, because it's not just craft, it's all in the words.